Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm 𝙎𝙐𝘽𝙎𝘾. So when we study history, the word pirate tends to evoke a seafaring criminal that terrorizes the waters of Europe and North and Central America and the Indies in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. But there's actually another word in the annals of history that's loosely translated for pirate, and it describes seafaring criminals that are actually far older than those that lived during the age of pirating. And these tribes dominated the wastelands of Northern Europe in the early Middle Ages, before the spread of Christianity proved to be their ultimate downfall. They were the infamous groups of tribes and clans of Northern Europe known to us today as the Vikings. Now, when we talk about the Vikings, it's a little different than when we describe, say, groups like the Romans, because the Vikings were not necessarily one homogeneous group of people. Rather, they were a loosely connected sort of conglomeration of Northern European tribes, with roots going all the way back to the height of the Roman Empire. So, while Rome dominated the Mediterranean world, it could never quite get a foothold in Northern Europe. It got pretty far, but never quite to the north. That goes all the way back to the disastrous defeat at Teutoburg Forest in 9 AD in Germania. Sure enough, these Northern European tribes actually proved to be the ultimate downfall of the Western Empire in the 5th century. So then over the next few centuries after, some of these Germanic and Scandinavian tribes began taking to the seas, which leads us to the early Middle Ages, when the clansmen known as the Vikings began to rule the seas north of Europe. Now, the age of the Vikings is widely accepted by historians to last from the 8th century AD to the 10th or 11th century AD. These tribes were not necessarily ruled by one warlord or emperor, but they were still very powerful and proved to be a dangerous nuisance to the cultures of Western Europe, which, keep in mind, at this time were beginning to flourish with the rise of Christendom in the West. Now, the Vikings became infamous among Northern European Christians for their sudden raids on monasteries and villages across the North Sea and even down into the Mediterranean regions. These tribes were also known accurately as Norsemen, and that's a loose translation just revealing the fact that they hailed from the northern wastelands of Europe. It's another way to say Northmen. Now, we're talking about the modern-day Northern European landmass, as well as Finland, Sweden, Iceland, and even parts of northwestern Russia. Now, the most famous, or at least one of the most famous of these Norsemen was Leif Erikson, the son of Eric the Red from Norway, who famously traveled to eastern Canada to become the first European actually to set foot in the New World in the year 1000 AD. Now, keep in mind, this happens almost 500 years before Columbus and the dawn of the Age of Exploration. Interestingly enough, Erikson's life marks the beginning of the end for the Vikings. Just as it had done with Rome, Christianity played a huge role in subverting the Viking culture, as the Vikings still followed the pagan beliefs of their Germanic ancestors with a pantheon of gods, very similar to the pagan Roman pantheon. Now, by the 11th century, as medieval feudalism and Christendom was growing in strength in Europe, the Vikings were fading into oblivion. And really, by the 12th century AD, Christianity had overtaken much of Northern Europe and began to overcome and conquer the pagan Viking culture of antiquity. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History. Thanks for watching this video. For more content like this, make sure to check out some of the other videos we have on the channel.